Hello and welcome. I'm Nicholas Perriman, and this is my presentation on coding Minesweeper. My goal was to recreate Minesweeper my way in MATLAB. These are some examples. You can find these on old Windows systems or on Google. How to play. So first, you'll pick a difficulty. It'll set the board size. It'll generate mines. And then the first thing that you do is start by picking a spot and revealing it. Assuming you don't lose right away, you look at the numbers you've got and pinpoint where the mines are. Do that until you win or lose. So for example, I start by picking column A, row 1, and I'm not fighting. So I get this big empty area. And the first thing that jumps out to me is C, or column C, row 3, there's a 1. There's only one spot that this 1 can have a mine next to it, and that's D2. So I input D2, Y for yes, and I flag it. And because there are 1s next to it, I know that D1 is safe. So I reveal that. And skipping forward quite a bit, actually, in N12, I see that there's a 1 next to it. That 1 has a mine above it. So I know that N12 is safe. So I reveal N12. So then I have a 2. I know that there's 1 mine next to the 2, and I know that there's 1 spot available next to the 2. So I mark that spot as a mine, and I keep moving. I go all the way down to the row until I wind up in this situation. And I made a guess. My guess was wrong. So I lost the game. And after losing the game, it reveals the correct map. So you can see exactly where you went wrong. So the basic strategy that I use is I pick corners, and if I don't have a good corner, I just try the other corners. This is not necessarily a safe idea. There is no guarantee with any spot in this game. There can always be a mine. So it's really just up to your personal preference. But in this example, it took me all 4 corners until I had one where I could actually work from it. So for the functions, what MineGen does is it takes inputs for rows, columns, and the number of mines. It takes the area of the map made by those rows and columns, and it randomly picks spots. Those are then marked as mines. What MineMap does is it takes the map from MineGen and goes down the rows. If it finds a mine, it adds 1 to every empty space around it. The way flood reveal works is when the player chooses an empty space, flood reveal runs, and it spirals out to a perimeter of numbers. It's essentially just a modified mind map that has some boundaries. Character map just translates the numerical player map into characters, which it saves in a matrix so that it can display it later. The main program ties everything together. It adds difficulty options, user inputs, and the user display to the mix. Here, you can see the difficulty changes the size, and then it goes to the map functions, which in turn starts the while loop that runs the inputs and the game until it ends. So checking inputs. On the left here, we have the isEmpty function. This makes sure the game does not break if the player inputs nothing. The rest makes sure that inputs are within the boundaries of the map. So you can't say, oh, this mine in row 1, column 1000, because that does not exist. So in the middle, these lines just say that if the player chooses to flag, as long as it has not been revealed, they can flag it. And if the player chooses not to flag and it's a mine, the player loses. And then it'll ask if they want to play again. On the very right here, we have the 2 lines that reveal the map. So the first one is just if you choose a spot and it's just a number. The second one is if you choose an empty spot, then it does the flood reveal. So you get an area out of it. If the maps match, then you win. It asks if you want to play again. Yes or no. It'll start one or it'll close everything out. So the problems that I had coding mind map the first time was painful. So what I did is I stepped back, I looked at it, I pulled out everything that I saw repeating, and eventually it just got to the point where it was just a stream of lines, and it was really short, a lot shorter than the original, and it just worked. So I pretty much left it at that and didn't mess with it. Now, setting up the while loop. When I first started with the while loop, it would only play the game until about the halfway point, which is no good. So eventually I found out that I could get the absolute min of the map compared to the player map. And as long as that did not equal 1 or did not equal true, the game kept going. No input, as mentioned earlier, I could just use is empty, and that would make sure the game wouldn't break. So starting the final product, you'll be presented with a menu for difficulty, and that will also have an option for the instructions. If you click the instructions, you'll get a message box. You can keep that around. The final interface is just a text display with 3 inputs. Right here, I've got the medium and expert difficulties showing. The size is different. It really does depend on how comfortable you feel with the game. I'll show you the game in action. So here we are in MATLAB. Run the game. Go with fast. A1, no, reveals an area. I don't have any guaranteed spots in that area, so I'm going to do F1, no. That's just a number. That's not terribly helpful. Try F4, I fail, the game ends. It asks me if I want to play again. Not right now, but we can look at the map. You'll notice that when the game is over, there will be a square for the empty spots that you didn't reveal. For future possibilities, originally I planned to make a GUI. I would very much like to do that in the future. I think a scoreboard would also be a good idea, and it would allow the player to set goals. The score would probably be time-based. And a mine counter would be really easy. I don't know how helpful it would be, but it's an option. And I think you could continue from there. Thank you. I hope you go check it out. Have fun.